What happens when Hollywood royalty meets daytime television reality? In just 24 seconds, one comment would destroy years of careful image building and expose the true character behind the polished facade. Last night, exclusive footage emerged of the most shocking daytime television meltdown ever captured on camera. This is the untold story of how Tamron Hall became the hero America needed, standing up to entitled behavior that had gone unchecked for far too long. The studio lights were blazing hot as Tamron Hall adjusted her notes one final time. Her production team had been buzzing with excitement for weeks about this exclusive interview. The guest was someone who rarely appeared on American daytime television anymore, someone who had become untouchable in many circles. But Tamron Hall had built her reputation on asking the tough questions, on getting to the truth that others were afraid to uncover. "We go live in 60 seconds, called out the floor manager, his voice echoing across the pristine studio set. Tamron took a deep breath, straightening her blazer. She had interviewed presidents, celebrities, and world leaders. This would be no different. She was here to do her job, to serve her audience, to get answers. Across from her, adjusting earrings and checking a compact mirror, sat her guest. There was an air of expectation, of someone accustomed to softball questions and fawning interviewers. But this was Tamron Hall's house, and she played by different rules. 30 seconds, came the countdown. Tamron smiled warmly at her guest, the same professional smile she had perfected over decades in the business. "Ready for this?" The response was a dismissive nod, barely acknowledging the question. Red flag number 1, and we are live in 5, 4, 3, 2. The familiar theme music swelled as cameras rolled. Tamron Hall faced the camera with the confidence of a seasoned professional. "Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Tamron Hall. I am your host, and today we have a very special guest joining us. Thank you so much for being here with us today." "Thank you for having me, Tamron. Although I should mention, I was told this would be more of a lifestyle conversation. I hope we can keep things light and positive." Already, barely 30 seconds into the interview, the guest was trying to control the narrative. Tamron had seen this before. Celebrities who thought they could dictate the terms of an interview, who believed their fame gave them the right to decide what questions were off limits. "Of course, we want this to be an enjoyable conversation," Tamron replied smoothly. "But our audience is incredibly smart and engaged. They want to hear authentic stories, real experiences. That is what makes for compelling television." "Well, authentic is certainly what I aim for," came the reply, but something in the tone suggested otherwise. Tamron decided to start with something relatively easy, something that should have been comfortable territory. "Let us talk about your recent projects. What has been keeping you busy lately?" "Oh, there is so much happening, so many exciting opportunities. Really, it is overwhelming how many people want to work with me. Just this week alone, I had to turn down 3 major offers because my schedule is completely booked." The response felt rehearsed, like a press release being read aloud. Tamron nodded politely, but she could sense her audience would see right through this. Her viewers were too smart for empty celebrity speak. "That sounds incredible. Can you tell us about any of these specific projects?" "Well, I cannot really go into details right now. You understand, confidentiality agreements and all that. But I can say that some very important people in very important places are very interested in what I have to offer." Vague, non-committal, classic deflection techniques. Tamron had been in this business long enough to recognize when someone was feeding her nothing but fluff. "I understand completely about confidentiality," Tamron said with a gentle smile. "Let me ask you about something our viewers have been curious about. There have been some reports about tensions within your professional relationships. How do you handle criticism when it comes your way?" The change in body language was immediate. The polished smile faltered for just a moment, replaced by something harder, less pleasant. "Tamron, I have to say I'm a bit surprised by that question. I was assured this would be a positive interview focusing on my humanitarian work and upcoming projects. I did not come here to be ambushed." "I certainly do not consider asking about how you handle criticism to be an ambush," Tamron replied calmly. "It is actually quite a common question in interviews. Many of our guests find it refreshing to talk about resilience and growth." "Well, perhaps your other guests have different situations than I do. My circumstances are quite unique, and I think that deserves special consideration." Special consideration. There it was. The entitlement that Tamron had heard whispers about in industry circles. The belief that normal rules did not apply, that standard interview practices should be bent to accommodate someone who considered themselves above such things. "I respect that everyone has unique circumstances," Tamron said, maintaining her professional demeanor. But I think our audience connects most with guests who are willing to be open and honest about their experiences, both positive and challenging. Honest? The word came out with a sharp edge. Are you suggesting I have been dishonest about something? Not at all. I'm simply saying that authentic conversation includes discussing how we handle difficult moments in our lives. It is what makes us human and relatable. Relatable? The guest let out a small laugh that contained no humor whatsoever. Tamron, I think you might be misunderstanding who you are talking to here. My experiences are not exactly relatable to your average viewer. I operate in circles that most people will never even glimpse. The condescension was unmistakable now, not just toward Tamron, but toward her entire audience. Millions of hardworking Americans who tuned in every day because they trusted Tamron to bring them compelling, respectful interviews. Tamron felt her protective instincts kick in. Nobody insulted her viewers. Nobody dismissed the people who had supported her career and made her show possible. This had just become personal. I think you might be surprised by how sophisticated and worldly our audience is, Tamron replied, her voice carrying a new edge. They appreciate authenticity over pretension. Pretension? The guest's voice rose slightly. I beg your pardon, but there is nothing pretentious about acknowledging the reality of my position. Some of us have responsibilities and pressures that others simply cannot understand. And some of us have built our careers on treating every single person with respect, regardless of their position. Tamron shot back, her patience finally beginning to wear thin. The studio suddenly felt electric. Camera operators shifted slightly, sensing they were capturing something special. This was no longer a routine celebrity interview. This was a real moment, raw and unscripted. I am not sure what you are implying, the guest said, her voice growing colder. I am not implying anything. I am stating directly that respect is a two-way street. You cannot demand special treatment while dismissing other people. Special treatment? I am simply asking for the basic courtesy that someone in my position should expect. Is that really too much to ask? Tamron leaned forward slightly, her journalist instincts fully engaged now. What exactly do you mean by someone in your position? The question hung in the air like a challenge. What exactly do you mean by someone in your position? Tamron had thrown down the gauntlet, and everyone in that studio knew it. The guest's eyes flashed with something dangerous. The mask of polite celebrity charm was cracking, revealing something much less pleasant underneath. I mean, someone who has sacrificed everything for the greater good. Someone who has given up their entire life to serve others. Someone who deserves basic respect for that service. Sacrificed everything? Tamron repeated, her eyebrows raising slightly. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that? Do I really need to spell it out for you, Tamron? I gave up my career, my independence, my privacy. I entered a world where every single move is scrutinized, where I cannot even go to the grocery store without being followed by photographers. And what do I get in return? Questions like this. The self-pity was remarkable. Here was someone sitting in a television studio, wearing clothes worth more than most people's monthly salary, complaining about the hardships of fame and privilege. Tamron had heard enough. Her viewers deserve better than this pity party. With respect, Tamron said, her voice steady and professional. Many people make sacrifices in their lives. Single mothers working 2 jobs to support their families. Teachers spending their own money on classroom supplies. First responders risking their lives every day. What makes your sacrifices more significant than theirs? The comparison clearly struck a nerve. The guest's composure slipped further. That is completely different, and you know it. Those are career choices. What I did was enter into a life of service that affected an entire nation, an entire commonwealth of nations. The scale is incomparable. Service? Tamron pressed. Can you give our viewers specific examples of this service you are referring to? I should not have to justify my service to anyone, least of all on daytime television. The fact that you are even asking that question shows how little you understand about the situation. There it was, the ultimate dismissal. Daytime television, as if somehow Tamron's platform was beneath serious discussion, as if the millions of Americans who watched her show every day did not deserve straight answers to reasonable questions. Tamron felt something shift inside her. She had spent her entire career fighting for respect in this industry. She had worked twice as hard as many of her peers to get half the recognition, and she was not about to let anyone, no matter how famous, dismiss her or her audience. Actually, Tamron said, her voice growing stronger, I understand plenty. I understand that when you agree to appear on a television show, you come prepared to have an actual conversation, not to lecture the host and viewers about how they should feel grateful for your presence. Grateful? The guest's voice rose to a near shout. I never said anything about being grateful, but basic respect is not too much to expect. Respect is earned, Tamron fired back. And it starts with showing respect to others. You have been condescending to me and dismissive of my audience from the moment you sat down. Condescending? The guest stood up abruptly, her microphone pack nearly falling off. I have been nothing but gracious, but clearly this interview is not going in the direction I was promised. The direction you were promised? Tamron remained seated, projecting calm authority. You were promised an interview. This is what an interview looks like. Questions and answers. Not a promotional appearance where you control every word. I think we need to take a break, the guest said, looking around frantically for someone from her team. We are not taking a break, Tamron said firmly. We are live on television. You can answer the questions or you can leave, but you do not get to dictate how I run my show. The ultimatum hung in the air. For a moment, the entire studio was silent, except for the hum of equipment and the distant sound of traffic outside. The guest looked around the studio as if seeing it clearly for the first time. Camera operators, sound technicians, producers, all watching this meltdown unfold, all witnessing the moment when entitled behavior met immovable professionalism. Fine, the guest said, her voice shaking with rage. If this is how you want to play it, then I am done here. Clearly, you are not capable of conducting a respectful interview. Respectful? Tamron stood up now, matching her guest's energy. You want to talk about respect? You came on my show, dismissed my questions as beneath you, insulted my audience, and demanded special treatment. That is not respect. That is entitlement. I am not entitled, the guest snapped back. I am simply someone who knows my worth and expects to be treated accordingly. Your worth? Tamron's voice carried the weight of years of fighting for recognition in a tough industry. Your worth is not determined by your title or your connections. It is determined by how you treat other people. And right now, you are showing America exactly who you really are. The guest's face went pale, then flushed red with anger. How dare you speak to me like that? Do you have any idea who I am? Yes, Tamron said, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. I know exactly who you are. You are someone who thinks fame gives you the right to treat people poorly. Someone who believes your problems are more important than everyone else's. Someone who demands respect while showing none in return. I do not have to listen to this, the guest said, fumbling with her microphone. You are absolutely right, Tamron agreed. You do not have to listen to this. You can leave my studio right now, but understand something clearly. This is my show. These are my viewers, and I will not allow anyone, no matter how famous they think they are, to disrespect them or me. The guest ripped off her microphone, the sound creating feedback that echoed through the studio. This is outrageous. I was told this would be a friendly interview. Friendly does not mean fake, Tamron replied calmly. Friendly means honest and respectful. You have been neither. I am calling my publicist. This interview is over. Yes, Tamron said, turning to face the camera as her guest stormed toward the exit. I believe it, Island. The guest paused at the edge of the set, turning back one final time. You have no idea what you have just done. No idea at all. Tamron looked directly at her, unflinching. I know exactly what I have done. I have stood up for my audience and my profession. I have shown that nobody gets a free pass to act entitled just because they are famous. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. With that, the guest disappeared backstage, leaving behind a studio full of shocked crew members and one very composed host who had just delivered the performance of her career. Tamron turned back to the camera, smoothed her jacket, and smiled the same professional smile she had worn at the beginning of the interview. Well, she said to her viewers, that was certainly unexpected. But you know what? Sometimes television gets real, and real is exactly what you deserve. We will be right back after this break. As the camera stopped rolling and the studio lights dimmed slightly, the entire crew burst into spontaneous applause. Tamron Hall had just reminded everyone why she was one of the best in the business. She had faced down entitlement with grace, defended her audience with passion, and emerged victorious. In 24 seconds of explosive confrontation, she had shown America what real strength looked like. Not the fake strength of someone demanding special treatment, but the genuine strength of someone willing to stand up for what is right, no matter the cost.